play ability. Yeah, I think he's going to contribute a lot for Alabama this season. I don't think it's fair to put the expectation on him to start right away. Could he start by the end of the year? Maybe. But we've kind of seen where at the receiver position, there have been years where guys at freshmen come in and play right away and play significant minutes. And then there's guys that kind of have to wait their turn behind other guys. Like even, I think just build wise, a lot of people compare Ryan Williams to Devontae Smith, and it's like Smitty didn't. I mean, he played some. Obviously, he had the catch for the national championship, but before that, his freshman year, he wasn't playing a ton. And so, but I think Ryan Williams is also stepping into a different wide receiver room than what Devontae Smith was in and some of those guys. So, tomorrow will be – I'm excited. That's one of the things I'm most excited about for tomorrow is to see him for the first time in action. We've heard a lot, haven't been able to see a lot yet. And so to actually see him play, see how much he's in there with the first team, kind of how much he plays, if he's able to make some big plays, that's kind of one of the things I'm looking forward to.
Well, I'm really, really excited. So excited that I think I messed up our stream a little bit. We might have just gotten restarted there. We're not going to rewind the last 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, but we're all excited. This is Football Friday on the Joe Gaither Show. I'm Joe Gaither with Kim Rankin, Scott Solomon, and Katie Wyndham. BamaCentral, Miami Hurricanes on SI, and Boston College on SI. We are getting set up for a big week number 1, and we're in the middle of talking about Ryan Williams. Kim, we saw Ryan Williams a couple of times on the Alabama high school scene. A lot of he's the best wide receiver I've ever seen. He's the best athlete I've ever seen. A lot of major superlatives about Ryan Williams. So we will obviously be looking for him tomorrow. What are the fair expectations? Are we agreeing with Katie that okay, maybe we were overemphasizing what he might do early on in fall camp, but now what do you think? What do you think about what Ryan Williams would do for this offense?
Absolutely. Like you said, we covered him a couple times at the previous outlet throughout high school football. I definitely kind of agree that I think he was a little overrated as a recruit and kind of coming into the beginning of fall camp. But I also believe that although he's a freshman, it's going to be interesting to see how Kalen DeBoer and the rest of the coaching staff deal with freshmen. I know sometimes Nick Saban didn't always give freshmen an opportunity or as many minutes as other players. So I think it'd be interesting, but I also agree. I think he's going to be one of the top contributors to the passing offense, and I think he's going to be probably the best rookie for Alabama this year, on the offensive side at least.
All right, so Katie, are we getting in the end zone tomorrow? Is Ryan going to get in the end zone?
Yes, I'll go. I'll make a. We did our adjustment earlier this week about who we think will score the first touchdown. Neither of us went with him, but I think we'll see a Ryan Williams touchdown this Saturday. Let's.
Katie, I think Western Kentucky is so bad we're going to see you in the end zone.
You know what? Maybe when I'm down on the field in the fourth quarter, we'll see.
Well, that's somewhere I want to go to. Is Western Kentucky? I mean, Tyson Helton has won 8 games or more in all 5 of his seasons going into year number 6. This is not a slouch program. Katie, South Alabama, the last time Kane Womack played Western Kentucky, lost, 44-23 in a New Orleans Bowl, at the end of the 2022 season. TJ Finley last year at Texas State put up 52 points and beat South Alabama as well. So there's some elements on the other side of the football that Alabama's facing that some of these, obviously you've got different athletes here on the Alabama sideline than you did at South Alabama when you were coaching as Kane Womack. But there are some elements here that didn't really go Kane Womack's way, and Western Kentucky is not a slouch program. So I just wonder how much of a factor are those elements that Tyson Helton has had the better of Kane Womack before, and TJ Finley has seen, at least schematically, this defense before. Obviously, the athletes will be a bit different, but how much are those elements going to be a factor on Saturday, or will it not be a factor basically because of the athletic difference between South Alabama and the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I think there's a lot bigger gap between South Alabama and Alabama. I do think the TJ Finley factor is at least he played in the SEC at 2 different schools, so he's not going to be intimidated necessarily by the size of Alabama's defense because he's literally faced them before. He's not going to be intimidated by the stadium or the crowd or the stage. But as far as the rest of the team, yeah, I just think there's a huge gap between the talent and athleticism and size of what Alabama will have and what Western Kentucky will have. It is like I was listening to College Sports Radio earlier today, and they were talking about, I think, on the Thursday night games, like 19 of the 21 or something like that, were like FCS versus FBS. I mean, this isn't like as bad as that. Like, this isn't a FCS opponent. Western Kentucky is a pretty solid mid-major, but I don't think that will necessarily translate into them being competitive with Alabama on Saturday.
Scott, what do you make of that with TJ Finley? TJ Finley coming into Bryant-Denny Stadium. He's played Alabama twice already. Freshman year at LSU, sophomore year at Auburn, lost both of those games. Got benched redshirt sophomore year at Auburn, then transfers to Texas State. He's played fairly well, over 300 yards against Kane Womack last year when he was coaching at South Alabama. Now TJ Finley has transferred to Western Kentucky, so it will be his first year in the Tyson Helton system, but he's played. This will be his third time playing Alabama and his second time playing the Kane Womack defense. Does that give any sort of element to the Hilltoppers saying, okay, we can hang in this game, not make it competitive, we're not going to fool ourselves here, but at least hang around and make it entertaining on Saturday?
I happen to like Finley a lot. I liked him when he was at Auburn. I think he's got an opportunity to put on a show tomorrow because he's going to have a national audience that he's going to be able to play in front of. Everyone's going to want to see the highlights from the Alabama game, not necessarily from the Western Kentucky game, but everyone's going to want to see the highlights from the game. And I just believe that he's going to come out, he's going to be strong, and he's got the ability to put some points on the board. I think that Alabama's going to have their hands full with him.
So Kim, it'll be your only time covering Alabama this year because you're going to be focused on Boston College. The calendar lines up just right for you. We've been really dialed into Alabama all for the last 6, 7, 8 months now that Kalen DeBoer has taken over. We've answered all kinds of questions. We've played the what's your biggest question about Alabama almost every third week for the last 7 months. Now that you have right at 24 hours, where Alabama's kicking off at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, what is the last question remaining for the Crimson Tide heading into the 2024 season?
Oh, geez. I don't know if I have like one specific like last question. I'm just kind of intrigued to just see with, a new head coach, which none of us have really seen in, so many years. I think we were all kids back when Nick Saban came in, but I'm just very interested to see kind of Kalen DeBoer's coaching style, because although he is a very winning coach, it's his first time coaching in the SEC, and he's going to be playing against a quarterback who, like you said, has played in the SEC and against other SEC opponents. So I'm just really, really intrigued to just see how he does in his first actual game as the Alabama head coach.
Katie, I need to throw that to you because we haven't talked about that really as an aspect of this season. You're the Alabama. You're born and bred in Alabama. Your family, obviously, University of Alabama family. What will it be like? Have you thought about what it'll be like at 5:48 or so when you realize that, oh goodness gracious? I mean, you've known it, but when it really hits you that Nick Saban's not walking down that tunnel.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be different. I think one thing, this isn't like a big question mark. This is kind of just like a joke question of like, what will Kalen DeBoer wear tomorrow? Because for the last 17 years, Nick Saban wore the coach's polo. I don't see Kalen doing that just based on what he wore at some of his other stops. On the cover of the media guide, I think he is wearing the coach's polo. So maybe there's some sort of deal with Nike where he has to wear it, but that just doesn't really seem to be his vibe with, the belts and the tucked in khakis. I just can't really see that from him. But yeah, it's going to be different. I was obviously young when Saban came to Alabama, but I do remember a little bit of really Shula's. I was alive for some of the other coaches, but really all that I remember. So yeah, it's going to be, I've even been thinking about, the tunnel video because And it's interesting now that I've been everywhere in the SEC, I think, except for Missouri and now Oklahoma, which we'll go to later this year. It's interesting to see at all the different spots how they handle pregame hype videos and what some schools barely do anything at all. Alabama kind of has the various levels because they have the national championship video. They have the tradition is video that shows tradition is built on toughness, whatever. And it ends with the Bear Bryant quote. And it's like, will that now be a Saban quote? Will the tunnel video still feature Saban, or will they be trying to, highlight on DeBoer a lot? And I think it's kind of interesting because, Saban, I feel like had a couple more iconic lines in his opening press conference of like, we want them to say we hate playing these guys. Basically, all I can remember that's kind of like that from Kalen's is like the standard is Alabama. So I'm sure that line will be in there. But even things like that I'm thinking about that will be different for tomorrow. And just I think tomorrow they're going to try and make it more about Kalen. And then next Saturday when it's the Saban Field dedication, I think we'll see a little bit more of the a little bit more focus on Saban.
Oh, it's gonna be interesting. All these little nuances that I haven't really considered. Obviously, I'm really more focused on what's going to happen on the field, but there's going to be a lot of these, little old ladies kind of crying. It's going to be different. Oh man, I cannot wait for it. I think that Alabama's in a really good position to move forward. Let's do a little something. Let's welcome in one more person. Let's welcome on Joey Van Zimmeren, Mizzou Central. And before we let Joey gloat, we need to go back because I did fail starting our podcast. We need to go back and reread our Purple Turtle Roofing advertising. They are the number one roof replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Purple Turtle Roofing, whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver your exceptional roof repair for your property. You can call Dustin Foley and his team today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. One of his employees will come out, they'll check out your roof for free, and they'll make sure that you're prepared for any and all of life's storms. Call them today at 877-787-6635 or check them out online at www.roofturtle.com. Joey, I'm offended today. I recorded the Missouri game last night. I'm going to watch Minnesota and North Carolina. I'll come back to Missouri in the morning. And obviously I'm keeping up with it just on my social medias. I didn't realize your very first move as a head coach, your very first move. I mean, Katie, you wouldn't believe this. What's his name?
Jody Wright.
Jody Wright. Thank you. Jody Wright, head coach for Murray State last night, opens his head coaching tenure. He's never been a head coach anywhere else before. Very first time being a head coach. His first play as a 50-point underdog on a Thursday night on the road in an SEC stadium is, I'm just going to call a surprise onside kick.
What do you want to lose? You're a 50-point dog.
Exactly. I love it. I think
I respect it.
I love it. I think it's great.
The next time, their first offensive possession, they go 3 and out. Well, 4 and out because it's third and 1. Now it's 4th and 1 from my own 35, and I'm just going to go for it again. Hey, what better? I'm sorry. I was offended because I thought, what message are you sending to these players? The message you're sending to these guys is F it. We're not going to win anyway, so we may as well just, pick and choose.
No.
We'll just
Former Alabama staffer Jody Wright. I didn't realize he was the.
That's why I was so offended.
The Nick Saban coaching tree, yeah.
Oh, Joey, tell us about the game. Good afternoon. Tell us about the game.
So Jody Wright in his pregame press conference earlier this week, he wears a Ted Lasso Believe shirt. Now, I don't know if that's bad luck because during fall camp, when Eli Drinkwitz was growing out his fall camp mustache, he looked a lot like Ted Lasso. So I don't know if that was why it didn't work out for Jody Wright. But look, I tweeted immediately after it happened. I was like, I love this from Jody Wright. This is probably the best situation where you can say, why not? I think if you're going to pull off some unprecedented turn of events, you got to do some unprecedented stuff at the beginning of the game. So didn't work out for him, but I respect it. I get what you're saying too, though, Joe, to maybe not the message you want to send to your players, but I think they have a good head on their shoulders to realize what they're getting into and that it's, This game isn't to win for Murray State. It's about exposure more than anything else. But great game for Missouri. Me and my other football writer, Michael Stamps, we were talking about it during this week of what really constitutes a success for Missouri in this game, because so much of it is just go out there, take care of business, and then move on to the next week before facing Buffalo on this upcoming Saturday. So they did that, but then also they stay mostly healthy. They did have tight end Brett Norfleet and Theo Weiss eventually exit the game with injuries, but from hearing from Drinkwitz after the game, it seems like that was just a overcautious move. And if they had any sort of soreness from their starters, they would have pulled them out of the game. So no concerns there. Really strong showing from the defense with the first game under new coordinator Corey Batoon. Really showed up a lot of the depth pieces defensively. Exciting to see a lot of those young guys too, offense and defense, underclassmen, that really showed out, just because we're not going to see them for another year or two. So strong showing from a lot of those guys as well. The two running backs, Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel, looked really impressive in person. So overall, Missouri, at the end of the day, you can't take away too much from this game. But overall, I think they have some positive takeaways to take into week 2.
All right, that's exactly where I want to dive into. Your very last point was my biggest takeaway from the game. The biggest point for Missouri was are you going to replace Cody Schrader? Obviously, his NFL journey, you guys have been documenting it at Missouri Tigers on SI. He's picked up to, was it the 49ers practice squad?
No, the Rams claimed him on waivers, so he is on the Rams 53-man roster.
Great. All right, so he's made it through and he's on the roster. But when I put it back on this morning, it was Nate Noel and it was Marcus Carroll, excuse me.
Marcus, yeah.
They were impressive to me. And I think that if they are able to replace Cody Schrader, then maybe that Missouri offense is going to be picking right up where it left off last year. I thought they were impressive as a pair.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see the both of them when we actually get into SEC play. But yeah, I was really impressed seeing Marcus Carroll in person. We all knew of Nate Noel's agility and his quickness, and that's more of his game compared to Marcus Carroll, who is more of a bruising back. But then Marcus comes out here, and obviously it is Murray State, but he had some really nice quick cuts too. There were some plays where Nate Noel took most carries on the first 2 or 3 drives, and then Marcus Carroll was being shuffled in more. And there was some plays that Marcus Carroll had where I thought it was Nate Noel. I mean, it doesn't help that their jersey numbers and the font they use for Missouri's jerseys doesn't make it easy to differentiate between Nate Noel's 8 and Marcus Carroll's number 9. But also just with how quick Marcus Carroll was with cutting in and out, impressive showing from the both of them.
All right, last week when you and I chatted, we talked about the sold out Faurot Field. They ended up selling out Faurot Field on Tuesday, Wednesday. So congratulations, Eli Drinkwitz. You got your sellout. How was the atmosphere last night? Was everybody in? Obviously, you're playing a lesser opponent, a 50-point game, but how was the fan base and the atmosphere?
Yeah, I was surprised, honestly, with how much it filled up. Obviously, I knew it was a sellout, but still surprised. Almost every seat filled in there at kickoff. Drinkwitz, another one of his plights with the fan base over the years has been the fact that they tailgate too long. So about midway through last season, he said, we need you 30 minutes before kickoff to be in your seat so we can have you there for all of the pregame hype. So they delivered on that too. Was impressed, especially with the student section getting there early and staying there longer than I expected. This game was over after the first 4 plays. Missouri student section stayed there for a good amount of time. Overall crowd stayed there for a good amount of time, and just exciting, for the first game of the season to get back into it. And I always go down to the field when the starters are being announced, and it's always fun for that to really gauge crowd reception of some of these players, and especially Brady Cook. It's been almost a full year now since they booed him, and he's done a lot to change that around. But every time Brady Cook is announced in starting warmups, I always pay special attention to the applause and noise he gets. So that was present against last night, and great atmosphere for a FCS opponent.
All right, one other guy that we talked about a handful of times this summer, Toriano Pride. It did not take him very long before busting out on that out route, getting the pick six, and really an athletic play. What did you see from him? Obviously, that one play was very special, but just as an entire performance, his first game in a Missouri uniform.
Yeah, exactly. And I talked about the play in our post-game reaction video for this it's a terrible throw by a lot of players on Murray State, or a terrible play by a lot of players on Murray State. You have the right tackle who really struggles blocking defensive end Zion Young, and Zion is just all in the face of Jaden Johansson. Jaden, the smart thing there is it's a 1st and 10. You can take the sack because he's thrown it to the right sideline on a receiver that's pretty poorly positioned on an out route. And then Toriano Pride, he's in zone coverage, pretty soft, obviously, because it's 1st and 10. And so he's still 3 or 4 yards out from this receiver and from where he jumps to get the interception when at the time when Johansson, the quarterback, throws this ball. And he really quickly gets over there, makes a leap up for that, and then just starts to the end zone. So good showing for Pride. Of course, seeing the sidelines reaction to it was very cool too, and hearing from the players after the game, it seems like that love for Pride really comes for not only the play he made, but also the respect they have from Nate Noel, the running back. Afterwards, he was talking about how great it is to see guys that really work, really put in the work to have their moments like that. So that was an exciting play, and that was the dagger.
Oh, yeah. Like in the first minute and a half, it was just like, oh, my gosh, because Jody Wright kicks the onside kick. He gives him a short field. He goes for it on 4th down. He gives him a short field. Then they throw a pick six, and the game is over. Like, I get it, Jody Wright. You want to say, oh, we have nothing to lose. Put my, cojones on the table, and, I believe in my team. But you shot your team in the foot right off the bat.
Yeah.
Give your guys a chance.
I tweeted after Pride's interception that Missouri was on pace to win 168-0. So, I mean, if they really wanted to, I think they could have done that.
I like the aggression, but come on, you got to be smart about it. Well, Joey, I appreciate you jumping in and joining us. I know it was a late night for the Missouri Tigers on SI. I encourage everybody to read the post-game coverage and reaction at Missouri Tigers on SI. Follow Joey Van Zimmerman at JoeyBZ_. He was in for Field last night. Obviously, Buffalo is on the horizon, and then you're going to have a date with our friend Kim Rankin. Boston College is on the schedule as well, so we'll get into that at a later date. Let's start turning it into Saturday. We talked at the very beginning of the episode about Alabama and Western Kentucky, just a little bit about expectations, last few questions, and Ryan Williams. Now we've got our it looks like Joey is gone. That's okay. If he wants to leave us, that's no problem. Let's talk about the games that are happening Saturday. We've got 6 games on our weekend slate, 1 on Sunday, 1 on Monday. What I want to do is I want to bring Scott. Let's go to you. Let's talk about Miami, Florida. Then we'll talk about Boston College, Florida State with Kim, and then we'll pick all 6 games. I've got spreads. Georgia, Clemson. Georgia, 11.5-point favorite. Miami, 2.5-point favorite over Florida. Texas A&M, a 3-point favorite over Notre Dame. Alabama, 31.5. Kim and Katie, 31.5 is our Alabama number this week. LSU at 4 points and Florida State at 16.5. But let's start with Scott Solomon, Miami Hurricanes on SI. Huge expectations. Scott, I've talked with Justice 3, 4, 6 different times this summer, and every time Justice is riding the Hurricanes high. Thinks that Miami has a chance to win the ACC. All eyes on Mario Cristobal. They've hammered the transfer portal. We've been hammering the recruiting rankings, and this is the year. Are you in agreement with Justice? Is everything lining up for the Miami Hurricanes to have a very strong season and make the college football playoff?
Well, I've got a column coming out this afternoon,
please,
or tonight, that basically centers around the fact that this is the one year, if Miami ever had a chance to win the ACC, this is it. They finally have that marquee quarterback and the speed receivers on the outside that can run that 9 route and a quarterback that can get him the ball, and Miami can put some big numbers up. Miami never really had a problem on defense. They had a problem with the offensive line, but they've built that up. Mario's brought in the cream of the crop because he's an offensive line guru, as you know, and he's got Alex Mirabal with him. And I think the defensive line, the game's going to be won in the trenches. The defensive line, Florida's going to have to stop Akeem Mesidor, and they're going to have to stop Ruben Bain. And I don't know if there's a college team out there outside of one of the other SEC schools like Alabama or Georgia that have the ability to do that.
Yeah, Miami's defensive line looks to be top 3 unit in the country, maybe top 2 unit in the country. They look very, very formidable. So it starts this Saturday with the Florida Gators, and a lot of attention from our end, the Alabama end, has been put on Florida as far as Billy Napier and his job status. Florida has maybe the second toughest schedule in the country this year. And Miami is a huge part of that. You just kind of highlighted Cam Ward. But what do you see? How do you see this game unfolding? It'll be tomorrow, 2:30 in the Swamp. It'll be the chance for both these teams to get off on the right foot.
Well, I think it's going to be a difficult game for both teams. Miami's a 2.5-point favorite, which actually means they're a 5.5-point favorite because you get 3 points for playing at home. So they think that Miami's going to win the game by almost a touchdown. I like the fact that Miami has what they have coming back. They attacked the transfer portal very well. I really like Sam Brown and Isaiah Horton on the outside. You got to look at Xavier Restrepo at your slot receiver. He's one of the best receivers in the country, if not the best in the ACC coming back. I just think that they have too much firepower for Florida, and I don't think Billy Napier is going to be able to keep up. As Justice and I discussed yesterday regarding Graham Mertz, the quarterback for Florida, he's very accurate, but he's accurate on checkdowns.
Yeah.
And Justice, pointed that out to me because I had written yesterday that he's very accurate on the run. And Justice said to me, he says, yeah, he's accurate on the run, throwing a 3 or 4 yard check down. He said, tell me how he's doing to get the ball to the receivers on the outside, on the perimeter. And I'm like, well, you just might have a point there. And Miami's secondary is probably their weakest link, but they've got Mish Powell, who played at Washington for Kalen DeBoer last year. And I think he's going to anchor the secondary. And I think it's going to be a long day for the Gators.
What's it do for Mario Cristobal when you've got all these circumstances aligned as far as talent goes, and you obviously have circumstances of an expanded college football playoff? What does it do for Mario Cristobal to have a huge rivalry game scheduled first up, to basically keep the team on edge throughout the summer? Okay, we do have all this talent, but there's a pretty big game to start the season.
Well, I kind of like it, because when you play with a cupcake the first week, you're not going to be able to gauge how your team can perform, and you're not going to be able to make the right adjustments. So when you start out with a quality opponent like Florida, you're going to be able to see what you have and what you don't have right away. Miami had a problem a couple of years ago where they lost early games to Middle Tennessee State, and that was the closest that the fan base came to wanting to run Mario out of town. And we can't let that happen again. So we have to be on our finest performance tomorrow. We have to be able to make sure everyone is at their peak and make sure that from the kickoff, they're ready to go.
We're hanging out with Scott Solomon from Miami Hurricanes on SI. You can follow him on the Twitter machine at Scott Solomon NFL. Let's talk about Cam Ward, because that was the big get. Obviously, the transfer portal, Mario Cristobal has done well outside of quarterback, but there was a little bit of a sweepstakes between Florida State, Miami, or the NFL for Cam Ward. Is he the real deal? Is he going to be the ingredient that delivers Miami that ACC championship or that really strong season that the Hurricanes fans are looking for?
There's two elements to Cam Ward's game, which you can actually say is a pair of elements for any quarterback: the physical game and the cerebral part of the game. And he excels at both. He's a student of the game. He knows the game very well. He just needs to make the right decisions. And if he can control the football and not give it away, it's going to be a long day for Florida. I'm going to be at the game, so I am hoping that they take Florida out early so I don't have to hear that Gaither chomp the whole afternoon. But I believe that it's going to start out. I'd like to see Miami get the ball first, put their offense on the field, and see what it does.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. You can follow Scott Salomon at Miami Hurricanes on SI. He will be in Gainesville tomorrow covering Miami and Florida. We'll circle back around to get all of our picks on Miami and Florida. At 2:30, Kim, let's spin it up to Monday. Your weekend is going to be a lot of fun in Bryant-Denny Stadium on Saturday, in Tallahassee. What's that, Doak Campbell Stadium on Monday. First, what's that drive going to be like for you? And second, what's the Boston College reaction to week 0? You saw Florida State go down. Does the belief go up in the Boston College fan base behind as they're looking at Florida State on Monday night? Oh, hold on.
Okay, first off, the drive, I actually just drove past 65 earlier this morning running errands, and it's already a parking lot for Labor Day traffic, so I'm really thankful I'm leaving on Sunday. That way I'll be past all the traffic, because I think everyone's going to kind of be in the Florida area by then. But yeah, back roads almost the whole way, but should be fine. But yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I don't think – my thing with Boston College and Florida State in this matchup is we've talked about it doing your show every week that, both you and I have both picked Florida State to win this game. And I don't think week 0 changes that. Boston College fans do. I've seen many Boston College fans, as I've been watching the reaction to the week 0 loss against Georgia Tech, saying that they think, Boston College is just going to steamroll Florida State now. I still give Florida State the advantage. I think they're going to be angry. They're playing at home. And regardless of how good or bad Florida State is, that is one of the toughest places to play in college football. I still give them the advantage. I think it's going to be closer than maybe I previously thought it would be. But honestly, I don't think Boston College is really out of this game. And I never have. Over the summer, even though I picked Florida State, and I still do pick Florida State, I don't think that has changed. If you had told me, if someone came down to me before week 0, during week 0, after week 0, and they said, hey, Boston College is going to win one of those 2 games, either against Florida State or Missouri, who do you think it's going to be? I'm not going to tell you who, but who? I would pick Florida State. I think they have a chance to win. I've always thought they have a chance to win. I think the chance is a little higher because of the week 0 loss, but I still think it's going to be a difficult challenge for them. So I still see Florida State pulling it off, maybe in a little tighter of a game than originally thought, but I think the Seminoles pull it out on Monday night still.
All right, what have you learned from Bill O'Brien and Thomas Castellanos in the last week heading into game week as you are finishing your prep?
Yeah, basically, I think the one thing I've learned is how ready they are. And I mean, you can say you're ready and then maybe show differently on the field. But I think every player, including Thomas Castellanos and head coach Bill O'Brien, I think they're all kind of locked into this mindset of, hey, we want to win. We want to win for them. You've been seeing it all summer, but I think it's a little more telling and showing this week as they're getting ready to prep and kind of getting ready to go out there. I mean, Bill O'Brien was on the BC football show last night that they do on a local radio station up in Boston. And he said Thomas Castellanos has done a 180 since he came in February up until this point. So I just think everyone, in the Boston College, the coaches, the players, everybody in that program just have the right mindset. They want to go in there. They want to win. I think they're focused and dialed in and know what they have to do to come out of that, especially because it's an opponent they play almost every year, if not every single year. And they want revenge from last year. They were so close to beating Florida State last year at home during the Red Bandana game. barely lost 31-29. A lot of penalties hurt them in that game. And I think they're looking for revenge. And I think they want to prove that they can beat a team like Florida State and kind of make a statement to the college football world about, hey, we're here. We're better than we were last year. Let me prove it here.
How much will being the only game on that Monday night? Obviously, there won't be any NFL, no Monday Night Football, or no other college football games to compete with. How much will being the only game on television that night maybe help Bill O'Brien's mission to kind of establish his vision at Boston College?
I think it'll be big if the game is competitive. You know, if Boston College goes in there and just gets steamrolled, I think people are just going to be like, this is Boston College. Like, I think it's going to be a little more negative. But I think if they play a competitive, close, tight game, people are going to be like, oh, well, Boston College is actually pretty good. Or, oh, they could really do something here. Or, oh, they could be like a quiet threat maybe in the conference later on. Because not only is it just a Monday where nothing else is on, it's also a holiday. You're going to expect a lot of people to just kind of be watching football on a holiday, Monday. And that Labor Day night game has really become a staple in college football, especially over the last 10 or so years. And so, yeah, I think if it's a close game, I think it's going to change a lot of people's perspective on not only like Bill O'Brien and Boston College, but just the game in general and the program as a whole. So, but again, if it's not a tight game, which I expect it to be, I don't expect them to get steamrolled at all. But yeah, I think if they play close, it's gonna turn a lot of eyes to that program for sure.
Well, Kim Rankin will have a very busy weekend covering Alabama and Western Kentucky on Saturday in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and then driving down to Tallahassee to cover Boston College and Florida State for Boston College on SI. Let's close out the program by making our picks for the weekend. We've got 6 games on deck. We will pick the 6 games against the spread. Before we do that, I want to tell you about my friend Derek Daniel at State Farm Insurance. You can call him at 205-758-3391 for all of your insurance needs, whether it be home, life, auto insurance, you need renter's insurance, boater's insurance, or trailer, RV, whatever you need, Derek Daniel can get you taken care of. Call him at 205-758-3391. He's got 3 great team members, Red, Reese, and Victoria. They can answer all of your insurance questions, get you on and off the phone very, very quickly with all the information that you need. That's 205-758-3391. Like a good neighbor, Derek Daniel and State Farm is there. All right, 6 games on the docket, and we appreciate Scott Salomon, Katie Wyndham, and Kim Rankin for hanging out with us today. I know it's been a kind of chaotic hour, but the first Football Friday always is. I've got these written in order. We'll play them against the line. We're playing Clemson, Georgia, Miami, Florida, Notre Dame, A&M, Western Kentucky, Alabama, USC, LSU, and Boston College, Florida State. And we'll just take them in order on the clock. So we're starting with number 14, Clemson, taking on Georgia. Georgia, 11.5-point favorite in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Will Kirby Smart have his Bulldogs keyed up? Still talking revenge from last season. Katie Wyndham, how do we think the season opening game goes in Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
I think Georgia's going to win. I do think the spread's a little high. I was listening to a podcast earlier, which at the time I think the spread was actually 13.5, so it's gone down a little bit, and they were saying that's like the biggest underdog Clemson's been since like 2012 or something. And just kind of looking at how basically Clemson and Georgia have swapped places in college football. Of Georgia is now where Clemson was a couple years ago, perennially in the college football playoff and the championship game, winning titles. I'm sure Dabo will have them fired up and have a message about being the underdog, but I think there's a reason that Georgia's preseason ranked where they are, up at number 1, and I think they're going to win in Atlanta on Saturday, and we'll also have the majority of the crowd.
Scott, how we feeling about that big old matchup?
I don't think Clemson has a prayer. I just think that Cade Klubnik is not the guy. He's not a leader. They don't rally around him. I think Georgia's too good, too fast. They got too much size. They control the trenches. The line of scrimmage is their best friend. And I just believe that they're playing in Georgia. It's not going to be close. I think I'm going to go with Georgia in the cover.
Kim?
Yeah, I'm with everyone else here. I think Georgia is going to win. I think Clemson might be competitive maybe at the beginning, coming out, wanting to maybe, make a statement or something like that early on. But I think Georgia kind of runs away with it in the second half and definitely win. I could see it going. I could see it being close. I could see Georgia kind of beating the spread there, but Georgia's definitely going to win that game.
All right, I'm taking Georgia and the cover as well for everything that Scott said. I think Georgia is going to, might be close for about a half, but I think they're going to just hammer away at them and comfortably cruise to a victory. We'll do it kind of like snake style, so I will take first on the next game. Miami is at Florida. Miami, a 2.5-point favorite at 2:30. I like the Hurricanes for everything that Scott and I were talking about earlier. I think that Cam Ward is going to be a lot of fun to watch this year. I think the Miami wide receiver core has enough versatile weapons to really attack a defensive backfield. And that defensive line is going to be really something serious. I think they're probably going to win right about 10, 13 points against Florida on Saturday to get their season going. Kim, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think Miami's going to win that game, and I definitely think they're going to cover the spread. I don't think it's going to be very close. It definitely over one score, but I mean, this is Miami's best chance to really make a statement this year, and kind of I think it's their best chance they've had in years to possibly win the ACC and make the playoffs. So I definitely think they're going to make a statement there week one.
Scott?
I believe that two things are going to happen tomorrow. Cam Ward's going to throw for more than 300 yards, and Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher are going to combine for more than 150 yards on the ground. And I think that if that happens, Miami wins by 2 scores at least.
I'll just be a contrarian here, and I don't honestly know enough about either team and what they have to make a super educated pick, but just the fact of this game is in Gainesville and the pressure that Billy Napier has this year and with how loaded the rest of their schedule is, I think you don't want to say week one is a must win, but things don't really get much easier for him. And I just think because the game's at home, it's kind of a rivalry renewed. I think the Swamp's going to be rocking. So I'll pick Florida just to do something a little different too.
I like that. Oftentimes you go out on the island. Go out on the island. You might be the only smart one in the room. The only ranked game, the only ranked game on Saturday that's on the sheet. Number 7 Notre Dame is at number 20 Texas A&M. The Aggies are a 3-point favorite. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun. 6:30 on ABC. Katie, do you think the Kevin Elko era gets started on the right foot?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough one because I think the 12th man is one of the toughest environments in college football. And normally I'm going to pick the SEC against Notre Dame, but then just because it is a first-year head coach and Texas A&M lost a lot to the transfer portal even before, or kind of, with the firing of Jimbo. And so I think I'm going to go with Notre Dame on the road to start off the season.
I'm going to go with Texas A&M. I like the Aggies at home. I think Mike Elko is going to have Riley Leonard's number. People forget that Mike Elko coached Riley Leonard at Duke, and he knows his tendencies. He knows what to do to get under his skin. Comparatively speaking, Riley Leonard knows how Mike Elko likes to scheme his offense and his defense, so he's going to know what to look for, and they're going to have different signals and different audibles and checks that they're going to have to call. But I'm going to take Elko and the Aggies by 7.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Texas A&M too. I get the whole first-year head coach thing, and I can see it going either way. But I think Notre Dame is just one of those programs where they really have a kind of a history of not really performing against, really good teams. I know sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're really bad. And I just think with A&M playing at home and how dominant the Aggies program has been, I would take A&M too.
Ooh, Katie, I think I'm going to leave you on the island, and I'm going to take Texas A&M as well. The 12th man just being a little too much for Notre Dame on the road. So That's 3-1. Katie going on the island again, but that means nothing because none of us know anything. Our last game on Saturday is Western Kentucky at Alabama, number 5 Alabama. Alabama, a 31.5-point favorite. Since we're doing it snake style, I am up first, and I am taking Alabama to cover the 31.5. I know that's a really big number, but last year when MTSU came to town, I took the underdog and came up with egg on my face. So I'm taking Alabama covering the 31.5. But what I like the most is the I think it's 59.5 is the total, is the over. If I were really gambling, and I am not, I want to make that clear to our listeners and viewers, I am not. This is just for fun. If I were really gambling, I would spend my $10 on the over Alabama and Western Kentucky. I think the total is 59, and I wrote it down yesterday at 59-23. I think I'm going to back off it just a little bit. I think I'll go with 59-20. You still cover the 31, but you get the over as well. Kim, what you think? Your only game in Bryant-Denny this year, Alabama, 31.5-point favorite over Western Kentucky.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alabama's going to win it. I think they're going to cover the spread. I just feel, with these home openers for Alabama in particular, everybody wants to score. Everybody wants to, up the game with the crowd. When the crowd really gets into it, there's no stopping Alabama. And I also feel like with the first game in the Kalen DeBoer era, that it's going to, I know Nick Saban had always been kind of, let's back off once we cover the spread type thing. But, you don't know if Kalen DeBoer is going to be that way. And I think everybody just kind of wants to win and kind of show that they're still going to be that dominant Crimson Tide program that they've been for the past 17 years. So I'm definitely taking Alabama to cover.
I'm going to banish myself to purgatory, and I'm going to go with the I don't think Alabama's going to cover.
It's all right.
I think that they're going to have some problems with their receivers. They're going to have a tough time on the perimeter just because they're new. And they're going to have a difficult time moving the ball offensively through the air. I think they're going to rely more on Jalen Monroe running and extending plays with his legs and throwing checkdowns. But I will agree with you on the total. And again, this is for entertainment purposes only. I don't want anybody using my opinions for their for their leisure, but this is for entertainment purposes only. I do like the over. I just don't think Alabama's going to cover.
I do think Alabama's going to give up some points on Saturday just with the inexperience in the secondary and TJ Finley's experience in the SEC, but I do think Alabama's going to cover maybe a 56-10, 56-17 on Saturday, but I kind of agree with Kim that when it's the first game, guys want to score. I think knowing what Alabama has coming up in weeks 3 and 4, your first road trip at Wisconsin, then just a gentle opening into the SEC with Kalen DeBoer with Georgia, I think they're going to want to try and get some guys, some experienced guys are going to want to find the end zone, so I think Alabama's going to cover.
Our last two games, and we'll go kind of quickly here with Sunday. USC, number 23, USC is taking on number 13, LSU. The LSU Bengal Tigers are a 4-point favorite in Las Vegas. I think Lincoln Riley is up a creek without a paddle, and LSU is going to take it to them on Sunday evening. Katie?
Yeah, until USC proves to me that they can tackle well and play defense, I'm never going to pick them against an SEC team. So I'm going to go with LSU.
I love USC in this game.
Woo, okay.
I think Lincoln Riley finally has his defense put together. He's hired some good coaches, and he's got the right horses out there. I think USC wins this one going away.
Yeah, I agree with Katie. I think LSU wins it pretty easally. I think USC has struggled too much, and Lincoln Riley has struggled a little too much to give me full confidence that maybe he could pull that off. I think the game's in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, so they might have a heavier USC crowd just because of proximity. But I do think LSU is just a better football team, and I think they come out of that pretty easily with a win.
Scott, I hope you're right. That would make for an entertaining story if LSU went out to Las Vegas and laid an egg. Our last game is Boston College at Florida State, Monday night, 6:30, 16.5 points for Florida State. Oh, my gosh. I think Florida State is going to bounce back and get a win. Goodness gracious. 16.5 points, though. Oh, it feels too much. It feels too much. Kim, you're going last this time since you're the Boston College reporter. We'll just spin it back around the same way. I think I'm going to take Boston College plus the 16.5, but I think I will expect Florida State to win the game. Katie, keep us going here on the circle.
I'm going to go with Florida State. I think they're obviously disappointed and frustrated with what happened in week 1. I think it'll be good for them that they're back at home, and they have to, after what happened with them last season, going undefeated, not making the playoff, having all the controversy about trying to leave the ACC, then they lose week 1. I think they have to, I said about Florida earlier, you can't really say week 1's a must win, and I'm not going to say this is a must win for Florida State, but pretty close to it.
I think Florida State is still hungover from the Orange Bowl. I think they haven't gotten that out of their system yet. I'm taking Boston College on the money line. I think BC is going to win the game outright. I think Castellanos is going to have the game of his career, and they're going to give Bill O'Brien his first signature win.
Yeah, I really hope you're right about that, Scott. I'm still leaning towards Florida State. Like I said earlier, the week 0 game hasn't changed my mind. I agree with Katie, and I've talked about it before in your show. I feel like them playing at home in one of the toughest crowd environments. I feel like they're mad about not making the playoffs last year. And this is really the first time that fans are going to be able to watch them since that announcement of them not getting in. And I think after the tough loss in Ireland, I think they're going to want to prove something, but I don't think they cover. I definitely think it's going to be around maybe one possession, maybe a little less. It's going to be a very tight game. So I don't see them covering, but I do think Florida State comes out with the win on Monday night.
Well, there we go. There's our picks, our 6 marquee games all over the weekend, over the Labor Day weekend, the week 1 weekend. And we appreciate everybody joining us today on Football Friday. We want to say thanks to Kim Rankin, Scott Solomon, and Katie Wyndham for joining us, carving out an hour of their time. Follow them at Katie Wyndham _. Follow all of Katie's work at BamaCentral.com, the Alabama Crimson Tide on SI home. Follow Kim Rankin at KM Rankin 1, Boston College on SI. Follow Scott Solomon at Scott Solomon NFL, Miami Hurricanes on SI. We got a lot of work to do because all of our teams are in action over the weekend, and we hope you join us on our respective websites, the On SI Network. It's been a lot of fun hanging out with you guys on a Football Friday. You watch us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, and you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, The Joe Gaither Show, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We appreciate Purple Turtle Roofing for sponsoring the program, and Derek Daniel State Farm for sponsoring the program as well. We're going to be back next week to break down all the action, the Alabama Western Kentucky game, Miami and Florida, Boston College and Florida State. And we'll bring back Joey Van Zimmerman to talk more in depth about Missouri and Murray State as well. We'll be back next week right here on The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.